All right. Welcome everyone to another match talk through live stream. This, I've been meaning to get to doing this one pretty much all month since I shot this match first weekend of last month, and I was hoping to have it done. I like to do these before I shoot the match the next month. Both as a review, I get something out of these by talking through the match and sort of reminding myself of mistakes I've made and things to watch out for. And I would, this match is going to be tomorrow, so I'm doing it today, so it gets done within the month. So that's how life is going right now. But I'm glad to be getting to it. I've got a tab open with the chat, so let me know if there are any audio issues, if anything's too loud, or if you can't hear the video. That happened last month. I'm not sure exactly what happened. For some reason you couldn't hear the actual video coming through. Because I don't have a producer, I'm streaming this from the same PC where I'm running everything. I can't really, it would basically cause feedback if I were running some kind of audio monitor, so I really can't tell while I'm casting or while I'm streaming how it's going. But if you have any issues, just drop it in the chat and I'll try and fix it. But to start with, we've got stage 2, and this was an interesting stage because basically it was, it was what? 26 rounds among a couple of different positions, to the point where basically you ended up having to reload at between almost every position, shooting in production, of course. And the briefing for the stage was you had to start with all the mags and the gun. Yeah, gun and all mags on this barrel. And basically the barrel was far enough outside the shooting area that it wasn't practical to go back to it and reload during the stage. But let's take a look at it and let you see what's going on.
Stand by.
These steel were interesting little diagonal shots. Yeah, you had to watch out for missing those. Some of the targets were available for multiple positions, so it was also not a huge memory stage, but there was an element of that. Lots of choppy little positions here. Again, 6 rounds. And then 6 rounds from here. I would have loved, I guess it was 8, yeah. Would have loved not to have to do a reload there. I'm actually, as you can see at the turn-in draw, wearing my Production 15 shirt. But that's how it goes. So about this stage, there were a lot of different ways to slice it up. And particularly in production, it was a little bit annoying, just because you did have, from this first position, it was 8. So it's basically 8, 6, 8, and then from this last position, it ended up being 4. And so there was, I tried to make the math work and dance around it, and then I said, nope, it doesn't. You can move rounds around, but you'd be shooting to 10 on some high-risk targets, and I just decided it wasn't worth it. And moreover, it wasn't worth trying to be clever with the start, with trying to pick up mags as you run by the barrel, or go all the way to the left and then run past the barrel, grab a mag going all the way to the right. I just skipped it all. Just put 4 mags on my belt. I did put my 5th mag. Let's see, you can see it. It's right there. So the idea was, if anywhere in the middle section, if I needed to grab it, if I had some death jam or something, I could grab it with my left hand. But other than that, I put 4 mags out and just started by grabbing all 4. Now, so the first 2, or rather, so the interesting thing, if there's any strategy here, is if you notice, I have them in 2 pairs of 2. It's not easy to get to exactly the right frame, but basically, and the base pads are interlocked, and so basically I can pick them up as one and push them into my mag pouch as one. So this one sort of gets pushed by the one next to it because I can just push the whole unit as a whole. So you can't really, I don't know how well you can see that on this third-person video, but I'm basically not even doing anything with my right hand. I'm just focusing entirely on picking them up as a unit, put the first one in, put the second one in, and then I'm starting to shift my focus, and I grab the gun, again picking them up as a unit, and pushing the first one into the gun, and then stowing the second one. Now, in retrospect, I would actually do this differently if I am in a situation like this where it makes sense to try and stow a mag, and then I have to insert a second one and load it. So what I end up doing here is I insert the mag, stow the second one, and then rack. What I would do differently now is I would take that first mag of the second pair, I would stow it. So with that ease of insertion, I would stow it in the front pouch, and then when I just have one mag left in my hand, I'd insert that into the gun and then rack it. So I'm not having to go down and back up with this gun with a mag in it but not chambered. And you can see I sort of doubted myself there and gave it a double tap just to be sure, just because I was I wasn't entirely confident that I'd inserted it properly. So little tiny detail, but that was just the way that seemed like the most straightforward, least gimmicky way to work through that startup. And then from there, it's basically just a straight up stage. There really was not anything too super complicated about it. Basically 8 rounds, move. This was a little bit of a split position, so basically that one guy. And then I'm just reloading just like I normally would. Go to each spot, shoot the targets you can see. Don't forget those plates. We had a couple new shooters forget those plates, but as long as you got your round count right, they weren't a big deal. And then the only other somewhat interesting thing here was this target order where you just had to be patient, just waiting for that big popper to fall. It was tempting to go shoot something else, but it wasn't worth it. Just be patient, chug through, shoot good points. I ended up dropping 2 Charlies for the stage, and it was just, there was with the magazine stuff dragging the hit factor down. So this was a 26 round stage, and this was worth 130 points, and so this hit factor ended up being 4.6, because overall the whole stage took 27. So this was not going to be a super fast hit factor stage, and so I was just making sure to get good points. And there were a lot of high risk shots. There were very few open targets. Yeah, I mean, those all have no shoots. Lots of no shoots on that guy. This guy's close. That might be the only open target in the whole stage. Yeah, there was only one open paper in the whole stage. So just no point trying to go fast or do anything fancy. Just shoot it straight up. Load all the mags, get them on your belt, and then just get back to shooting the stage just like it's a pretty normal stage. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. Quick little jumps. So that one went pretty well. Good way to start the day.
Yep, stand by.
This stage was a little memory-ish in that you had to sort of keep track of which targets to shoot from where, but once you had a pretty good order down, it wasn't super confusing. You just go to each spot and shoot the targets as they're available. This was a little tricky, and that was an easy spot to overrun. And that little mini guy got a lot of people, that little mini target. Now, I actually here, so you can't see on the video, but you had to start with your toes on a set of X's. And so you couldn't exactly start where you wanted. It wasn't start anywhere in the shooting area. And I overdid this a little bit. I sort of drove in a little too hard on these first guys. And so I actually have to lean a little bit. I take 3-4 steps there. And I probably should have taken 2 or 3. So So I end up having to lean back a little bit because this last target isn't quite available to me. But rather than picking up my feet, just lean for it, move to the next spot. I'm using markers on the ground, so I'm using landmarks to know to navigate to, and also a rough sense of how close to the pipe I want to be. So for this position to work, I want to be right up on the pipe, but for the next one, I actually want to be about a step back. It just makes the angles easier. And so I actually do that a little bit, but not enough, and that's why when I get to these targets, I have to take a bit of a step back. I didn't actually hit that landmark the way I should have. So again, I have to lean and take a little half step, go to my last spot, find the target, aim, and get the alphas. It felt like it was taking forever on those, especially on those last couple, the last position. But here again, I knew, this much movement, a lot of risky targets. This wasn't going to be a super high hit factor stage, and so the alphas were going to be worth it. This ended up being about a 25-second stage, 5.5 hit factor. So the points were definitely worth it. So yeah, the whole trick to this stage was just figuring out how to break it down, what to shoot from where, and when to reload, and then just getting landmarks. And I did that fairly well. I was happy with the points. I overran that position a little bit, and then coming into this next position, I just overran it a little bit. Didn't back up quite enough. And there again, that was another one of those where you have a big popper in front of a small plate, and there's nothing to do about that. You can try and get fancy, but I didn't. You just wait for it to fall, and then as soon as you have a clear shot on the plate, you take it. I guess one other thing that might be somewhat interesting in this last position, so I'm shooting 3 targets, basically one almost on the 180, and then one, this little mini guy right here, and then this hardcover right in front of me. And originally, being a right-hander, it's naturally easy just to transition right to left, but just because I knew it was going to be a bit of a setup in this position, I figured it was smart just to start with the target on the 180 and then swing downrange, so that I wasn't just trying to avoid anything, if I have to clear a jam or anything and at unload, I'm not close to the 180, and so it's just easier. Does that really matter? Probably not. If you have the discipline when it's over to turn downrange, not a big deal. But I figured it didn't cost me anything to do it that way, and it let me start on the harder targets, and as I got closer to the end, the targets got easier of the 3 targets in that array. Because, so from that position, it was a cross angle shot. It was about 25 yards to an open paper, and then about a 10, 12 yard mini, and then this guy was just open. Rolling out of that position a little bit, which was nice. And I did have to shift my weight because I overshot that position, but luckily it didn't cost me that bad because it took 3/4 of a second for that big popper to fall. So I had a little bit of time to reposition and be ready for that plate when it came out. This stage there was a little bit of an interesting brief to it where basically you had to activate the stomp box before you pick up the gun or before you fire your first shot, something like that. So basically they wanted to make sure the stomp box was going and the movers were going before you really got into the stage. figured you had to come to this position, so you might as well shoot while you're there, so you're not having to come back to it. Tried to put 2 on the swinger on the first pass, didn't make it, so shot another. Now this is really funny. So I called something slightly wonky there on the hardcover as I was coming in. I thought I called a hit in the hardcover, and so as soon as I finish the second shot on this next target, you can see I actually turn to look at it, and I actually start turning my head before the second shot breaks. And you can see I'm just hesitating there because I'm like going back and forth. But what I saw was it was on the line, but it was an alpha, so I didn't need a makeup. As it was, the mini was so close. I didn't end up moving my hand, so it wasn't an issue. But yeah, that was risky. There was a lot of danger there in looking away and doing that on a mini target that, you know, I could have easily thrown a miss on. And so by trying to be in a rush, just blasting that guy coming into position and not calling the shot and being able to shoot a makeup if I needed to, it ended up costing me, or it could have cost me. In this case, it didn't. But yeah, and you can actually see that on the first person video as well. So I'm coming in. Let me slow it down. Coming in. Yeah, you can see me like hesitate just a little bit, but it worked out, but not what I wanted, just being in too much of a hurry. So yeah, there were a fair number of options with this stage, which was fairly cool. Some people wanted to get to the movers as soon as possible, and the start position was only, you just had to start with your toes touching the box. And so that left some options open around, you know, some people started on the right side of the box and went to go shoot the swinger first. But, you know, my attitude was, if I'm going to have to come back here, if I'm going to need to be in this sort of front right corner of the shooting area to get these targets, I might as well just start there and then not have to come back. Trying not to set up too hard and, you know, keep rolling through this area. Now there were, you know, 8 shots, so it's not like I wanted to shoot the whole thing on the move, but at the same time I was just trying to stay not setting up too much. So that one actually went, you know, fairly well. The delta I wasn't stoked about, and I think I was thinking a little bit too much about footwork and positioning, and so the Charlies hurt a fair bit too. Not terrible, but definitely more than I was looking for. Would have been happy with, say, 3 or 4 Charlies and no deltas there. Fortunately, it's been long enough. I'm sure if I went through the raw hat cam footage, I could see where the delta was on this stage, but it's been almost a month and I actually don't remember exactly where the delta was. I want to say it was on either the swinger. No, I don't think it was on the swinger. Anyway, I don't know. So this was, I think, where the match started to go a little downhill for me. Let's see if I look at practice score. So we shot stage 4 at, what was the time of day? Time of day was 12:36. And this is stage 5, 13, so 1:17. So it was, you know, starting to get to the heat of the day. We had a little bit of a wait on this stage, and I just I had a little bit of indecision, and so I ended up not sort of programming in quite enough precision in the actual stage plan, but you'll see it as we go. So I actually overrun this position. I moved too far. I have to move back just to get back to there. And unfortunately, yeah, I ended up, you can't really see it too clearly. Oh yeah, you can see it fine there. So ended up having one in the hardcover. These were actually, these two shots were right next to each other. They were an inch apart. One just happened to be on one side of the line, and one was on the other. And that was just an issue of shooting off balance. As you'll see, I just didn't get the positioning quite right. And so the gun was just, it wasn't quite shooting where I was expecting it to, and I didn't call it.
No, it's not your fault.
So you basically had this wide transition, had the high risk one, and I'm actually shooting on 1 foot here. So I didn't set up quite wide enough. And so rather than either shimmying or just staying planted and shooting, what I could see, I kind of took this on 1 foot, and there just wasn't enough stability. It didn't work out. And so it ended up being a tight group, just in the wrong spot on the target. And because I was sort of leaning and rolling out of position, I didn't call it. So that was frustrating. So that's one of those little details where, as I was walking through, I was like, okay, like take those 2 targets on the right, fine, go to the next spot. And there was just a little bit more nuance that needed to be baked into the stage plan, and it wasn't there. Now here, this part came in fine, got the reload done, shot this position, but then I've been working on rolling out of position, and so I do it there, even though I don't need to. And so, I actually basically needed to do a little 1-step reload so I can see this guy behind the black barrels over here. But because I have this easy target right in front of me, to go back to the first person. Yeah, I basically have the full A zone. I'm moving straight back, and I can basically roll out of position. So I do, even though I don't need it. It's kind of like in production. A lot of times you'll end up reloading every time you move your feet, even if you don't need to. And so there are good habits to be in like that, but when you do them and they hurt you, it's obviously counterproductive. So I'm rolling out, and then, oh crap, I lost that guy. So I got to come back for him. So in the third person, yeah, I'm coming into that position. Start to roll out. Have to backtrack. Where to take these big poppers was kind of an issue. There was no really good spot, and so I just took it there. And then this last position, there were 4 poppers, 2 paper, so 8 required rounds. And you basically had to go, to get 1 paper, you had to go to the front left corner. To get the other paper, you had to go to the front right. And you could see all 4 poppers from both positions. And so my thought was come in, shoot 2, and then try and shoot 1 or 2 of them on the move to the other position. Now, I knew this was a little bit risky and that I had 3 rounds to play with. And so in my plan, I basically said, okay, try, take a shot on the move at them, get them if you can on the move, and if not, just settle in it and take them flat-footed. So those 2 are fine. I tried to take that guy. That was just a bad trigger pull. I don't know if you can see. I ended up, there's a little dust cloud to the 9 o'clock to the left of the popper's calibration zone. And so I tried to take that guy on the move, and then I'm like, okay, I've used 2 of my 3 rounds. I'm not consciously thinking about this. I'm not saying those words in my head, but I know, okay, my margin for error is thin. So set up, let your sights settle, and go 1 for 1 on these steel, just because you don't have any rounds to make up, and you don't want to have to do a standing reload or take a miss. And then I called 1 bad hit on that last target, and so I was glad I had the makeup shot. As it was 3 alphas. I didn't really need it, but I was glad that I had it. So that was one of those. That was I was trying to push the envelope. My tendency is to shoot very flat-footed, be very static, and just take high confidence shots. And so this was a bit of an experiment. I was trying to push the boundaries a little bit there, and it bit me. And I think, if I had to shoot this again, it would just be come to here, post up, get a nice stable sight picture, and then just 1, 2, 3, 4 steal, get the piece of paper all the way on the right, and then just move to the other position in the front right of the shooting area, and just have the gun up. And then as soon as you see that guy, just be ready to shoot him. So this was a little 12-round short course, and I have to say this stage probably provoked the most discussion of any stage all day. Certainly, top 2 or 3 in terms of how many different ways to run it. Just because even though there weren't that many rounds required, there were so many options that it was a very interesting stage, and it allowed for a lot of different ways to tackle it. Mostly just because a lot of the targets were visible from a large section of the shooting area. And I was actually, originally I was thinking that you would just have some kind of 2 or 3 position, basically run to the left side, shoot everything, run to the middle, shoot everything, run to the right, shoot everything. And then, as I started looking through it and just walking through it, it presented better if you just stayed in constant motion. And so that's what I did, even though this is, I think, a fairly unorthodox plan for production. But none of the targets were particularly far. I think the furthest shot was probably that guy at maybe 10 yards. Most of the shots in the middle were fairly easy. You just had to get the timing right. So if I slow this down, and the other issue was being patient. So you spent a lot of time getting to the first shot. You weren't, you could see some targets coming in. If I look to my left, I could see some targets, but the trick was wait until you see the target that you need to hit, the steel popper behind the barrel in this position. Shoot that guy first and then work your way out. So it required a certain element of patience, but once you'd done that, it was basically a smooth roller coaster all the way to the end. So come up to here. Oh, I guess I shot the paper first, sorry. But then just keep the gun up. You can see I'm looking through the barrel where I'm expecting this target to be. I know it's going to be there. I don't even have to look for it. And so I keep the gun up, keep my firing grip, and I just turn and start moving. 1, 2, he disappears, the next guy appears. Now this was interesting because this was actually the furthest movement of the stage where you didn't have anything to shoot. Now I can shoot. I don't know if you can see it, but there is a target just to my right that is available, who'll be the first target. So this slash hardcover here, that'll be the first target after the reload. But when I was trying to figure out when to do the reload, at first I was thinking after that target. Now the downside to that is it pushed me pretty tight on rounds. That first magazine would have been 9 rounds. Which isn't terrible, but it's more risky than having the stage be broken down into 7 and 5, because it's a 12-round stage, 10-round magazines. 7 and 5 is safer than 9 and 3, and it actually worked out that I could just while I was doing the reload, basically shift from my hips facing towards the left side of the stage, so I'm sort of advancing towards this target as I'm shooting it, and while doing the reload, kind of flip around so that by the time I'm shooting this right-hand target, I'm actually backing away from him. And then as soon as I'm done with him, there's one more paper target, the last paper target of the stage is available. And so when I was looking at walking through, let's see that. So reload, shift my orientation there, and then immediately transition because I know he's going to be there. Slightly under transition to that popper. It happens, but I called it. I didn't drop the gun down. I didn't think I'd hit it. And so I just put another one on it. But that that ended up being the longest time in the stage where there really wasn't anything to shoot. So grab the gun, get out, have it up, coming into position. Keep up, stay low, I'm not in a hurry. I'm not trying to move particularly quickly, just keep the train rolling. And you can see by now I'm facing that target. So as I'm doing the reload, I'm basically turning my lower body 90 degrees. So instead of facing those guys, now I'm backing away from him. And I transition straight to that target and the popper. And so that definitely was definitely outside of my comfort zone. It's not something I practice a lot, but it was something that as I was looking it through, it just I could see that was the way to shoot this stage. And I ended up running it, and I wouldn't do anything different. I think that was the way to run it.
Stand by.
The trick is just stay low, lots of knee bend, don't be in a hurry, don't be trying to run too fast, don't overrun the target. Obviously, with particularly that first. So this target was very easy to overrun. You can see I basically lose sight within about 2 steps. And so I knew I just wanted to have my gun up as soon as I was done. And take him, keep rolling. Yeah, that one was pretty cool.
Stand by.
Next stage was the Classifier, and we shot him back to back, and so walking across, I could feel my hands were already starting to get sweaty, and I knew it probably wasn't going to be good. And, in retrospect, I should have walked off the line, taken a break, like not a long break, but just grabbed a towel, put on a little bit more pro grip, but I just kind of figured just send it. I knew roughly the speed that I needed to shoot at, and I was just gonna see what would happen. And the speed was good, the raw time, so I ended up having one hardcover mic on the far target. I mean, you can see here, so that's a borderline hardcover miss. That one was okay. This one was borderline as well. So and up and to the right, every single one. And then this last target ended up being up and to the right as well. And so it's just the first shot was dead on. The second one, the gun was just, it wasn't recovering enough because I wasn't actually getting traction with the left hand, just insufficient pro grip. But the time, I think if this back alpha mic had been an alpha, it would have been like a 98%. So the time was what it needed to be, and I knew that I basically needed to be shooting at that pace. But I just, this was the first sort of hot summer match of the year, and I thought I had enough pro grip on, and I didn't. And rather than futzing around with it, I sent it, and it burned me. But it happens, and so definitely something to take forward to tomorrow's match, which is, I think the high is going to be 95, so it'll be even warmer.
That pattern now. It's up and to the right every time.
Yeah. And this was also, I think, around this time. This was, the heat of the day. We were at the top of the hill where there's not that much shade, and I think I drank pretty much all my water. And so this is where things, I think, started to slip a little bit for me. So we've got stage 8, and then the last stage of the day would be stage 1. And stage 8, this was a truly excellent stage. It may not look like it, but there were genuinely a ton of options on this stage. And you could go forward. You had these 3 targets. You could have obviously gone much further forward. You had to come back, but then these were options. You could go forward on them. Shooting to 10. I'm about to shoot to 10 again. I know I have to do a reload because I shot a makeup.
Stand by.
And this was all about the start position too. If you had to start anywhere else, it might not have been as interesting a trade-off, but because you had to start where you did, you basically had to choose which direction to go at the beginning. So I obviously didn't plan that last reload, but, well, two things happened. One, I don't know if you can see it on the video, but when I was coming across, when I was doing this reload, I don't know what happened, but I just remember seeing out of the corner of my eye one round flipped out of the magazine. And so I knew as soon as I came into this position, I only had 9 rounds in the gun. So I knew I was going to have to do an extra reload. And then it just also worked out that when I got to this position, I was like, send an extra. And so I had to do an extra reload because my plan, starting from this middle position, so I basically it was 6 and then 10 and 10. Is that right? 26 round stage. Let me look. Looking on my phone at practice score. Yeah, 26 round stage. And again, in terms of risk, I chose to take a very risky plan. And in retrospect, I don't think I would do that. I think I would try and divide things up a little bit differently. Additionally, on this front target, so you started right here in the middle. There was another plan where basically you could move forward while shooting some of these targets and then zip across this open space and then shoot the front 3 from much closer. And I think that probably would have been a much better idea. I have a tendency, I tend to like standing back and sniping, trying to shoot targets from further away, thinking that it won't be that slow, but it's usually pretty slow. I think I ended up spending a lot of time, especially with the hardcover mic that I ended up having to go back and make up. And even after I made up the mic, I had Charlie Delta on this left target. And so I'm not sure it was the way to go. And so there I know I've shot my one makeup round for this whole second half of the stage, because I was planning to go 10 and 10. And so I know this is going to be a slide lock reload. And sure enough, it is. And then when I see that round come out, I know, oh, okay, I'm going to have to do another reload as well. And so this just, this was a very risky plan, and I do not think it was a good choice in retrospect. I think going forward to shoot those forward targets probably would have taken less time, or at the very least, it would have been a better hit factor, just because standing back, the points I ended up getting just were not good enough.
Stand by.
Yeah, trying to move, shooting to 10 with steel. I really had to confirm my sights on these, whereas if I had a couple extra rounds, I could have been a little bit more aggressive. Yeah, and there were some other options where you could see some of these forward targets from the sides or from the windows. There were a ton of different plans for this stage, and this one just was not the way to go. All right, and then this last stage was super straightforward. You basically could start all the way to the left or all the way to the right, and you just go to each position and shoot each thing. The one somewhat interesting part of this is the plate swinger, and I think they're cool. I think it's an interesting option. Paper swingers, everybody's seen them, everybody's shot them, but this one is a new prop for Sir Walter, and I hope we get to see it some more. I think they're really interesting, and just fun to shoot. The timing here, knock that guy down, get the paper. When that just goes right, it's that's always fun. But yeah, I was definitely starting to fade. I was a little bit loose, just on the recoil control. The gun's bouncing around a lot. Didn't go terrible, but I mean, Alpha Charlie on almost every target. Just dropped a ton of points for how little paper there was on the stage. A couple makeups on the plate rack. This target in particular, both shots were within an inch of the no shoot, and so score wise it was 2 alpha, but looking at it I was like, oh, dodged a bullet there, like really getting a little loose. Just in a just into the day, not enough water, hot day. I just wasn't prepared for it, wasn't sort of pacing myself, and just getting a little loose on the discipline, not gripping, not visualizing. And that's definitely going to be a challenge for tomorrow's match as well. So, yeah, this one, like I said, nothing really complicated there. If anything, I guess the one choice was, do you start at the left, start at the right? And the nice thing about starting at the left was you got this somewhat complicated, not really, this minor mover sequence out of the way. So, plate, paper, and then come back for the other plate. And then once you're done there, it's just go to each spot, shoot everything you can see. Was fairly happy with that, in that basically you can see I keep the through the reload, keep the gun up, so I'm actually almost sticking it through the mesh coming into this position. Just because I didn't want to set up hard, which again, almost cost me in points, because I was just rolling through and not aiming as hard as I could, as hard as you might, because in this middle position it was just that one target. Now it's a high risk target, it's not very far away, but I easily could have picked up 2 mic, 2 no shoot, if I just dipped the gun down a little bit lower. So got lucky on that one, but other than that, I was just trying to keep momentum up through this target, and have the gun up ready to shoot, and not trying to move hard between the positions necessarily, but just have the reload done in time, have the gun up, and just keep kind of chugging through. Maintain a little momentum, have the gun up here again as soon as you're settled, shoot 1 for 1 on the steel. So overall, a fairly tough match. Not really what I was. Didn't really perform quite as well as I was hoping. Just again, the heat surprised me. With COVID and everything, I really you always get a bit of a rude awakening when you show up to a match and you're halfway through the day and you run out of water. And luckily there was, I was able to scrounge up some more. But it was, that was, I was definitely, the squad as a whole, I think we were all suffering a little bit, but just, it's what you have to do in the South in the summer when you want to shoot. So definitely a lesson for tomorrow, planning to bring way more water than I'm expecting to drink, and, take shade seriously and all that. But all in all, not terrible. Dropping my phone. For the day, 92% of points, 2 deltas, 2 mics. Again, that 1 mic was on the hardcover. Right here, sort of shooting on 1 foot. And you can see I'm leaning a bit too, and so it's a little hard to track the sights. And then the other mic was on the Classifier where I was just sending it. So, other thing, make sure to pro grip up again, more than you think you'll need. But that's how the match went. Looking at the chat, I see a question from Steven. So you count rounds and not targets in each position on a stage. Yeah. I mean, so at each spot, I'm thinking about what is the minimum round count that I'll need, and then what's my wiggle room. So for a position, or not even a position necessarily, but for a magazine like this, where I'm coming to, I've got 4 paper targets and 2 steel. I'm thinking, okay, I've got 10. I know I've got the +1 in the gun from the previous magazine. But it's, I have one round to spare in this magazine. And as much as I can avoid that, I try to avoid shooting to 10. God forbid I have to shoot to 11. You do have to do it now and then. There are times when there's just no better way to do it. But it's fairly rare, especially if you're reloading from your first pouch. You can usually reload in a second and a half, 2 seconds, depending on the conditions on match day. And so if you can slice things up differently, it's good to avoid that. But yeah, when I'm planning through a stage, I'm actually thinking in terms of how many rounds I'm shooting out of each magazine. And a lot of times I'll actually run that through as a double check. So I'll add them all up and make sure that it adds up to what's in the written stage brief about the number of rounds for the stage. So a good one where it's pretty choppy is this first stage of the day where it was 8. Let's see, what was it? 8, 6, 8, and 4. And so, okay, 4 and 6 is 10, 8 and 8 is 16. So it's a 26 round stage. Yeah, 6. And a lot of times I'll visualize it through, counting the shots in each position, and then I'll just double check, is that the round count for the stage? Because it could be easy to count this as a position of 10 because you can see 10 rounds from here, but I already shot those 2 targets from a previous position. So yeah, so I break it down in terms of rounds, not necessarily just the number of targets. Yeah, see a couple guys live. It's up to Pop from Pop's Quest. Glad he could join us. And yeah, someone commenting, yeah, 26 round stage, 1 mag with my 29 round mag. This, you may not be surprised, but this stage was actually designed by an open shooter. And so I do not think to him it was that big of a deal. And that's, that's just the way it is. You can, a lot of times you can get a flavor. Sometimes, you'll shoot a stage and you're like, oh, this feels like it was designed by a single stack guy because it's like 6, 6, 6, and 6, or 8, 8, 8, and 8. But, at the end of the day, everybody in your division is, no matter how it was designed, everybody's having to shoot it the same way. Everybody in your division on match day is shooting it straight up. And so it's just a question of, how do you tackle it? Yeah, Pop mentions when you move reload, and often that's the case. That's actually, like I mentioned earlier, that's a habit I think as you get better, you actually have to work to break, because there will be times when you actually, you may have a position of 2 to 4 rounds and then another position of 2 to 4 rounds. Where is it? It's like in this one, it's coming in. You just shoot 2 here and then you hop over. And so you don't really, sticking a reload there obviously wouldn't help. And especially here where you're very limited on magazines, that is something that I think is actually, at a certain point in production, you actually have to train to move without reloading more than you have to train to move with reloading, because it just becomes such a default. And so I actually like to, especially in practice, work on drills where I have 2 positions, 2 or 3 positions, and maybe I'm reloading between the first and the second, but not the second and the third. And that's, that way I'm having to exercise that muscle of doing the reload when I'm moving, but not always, having it when I need it, and visualize it into the plan, not just saying, okay, yeah, move and reload, etc. Yeah, Pop also asks if I've ever shot any other divisions. I used to shoot single stack. I had a 1911 for a while. In fact, if you dig back in the videos, they're all up on YouTube. I liked single stack. It was easy. Ammo was easy to load, but it just got to the point where, it was kind of a fun thing in the off season. And gosh, that would have been like 2013, 2014. And once I really got serious about practicing, it stopped being that interesting. I'm trying to sort of push as hard as I can at one thing. And every time you switch guns, you have to, relearn the gear, or, change your grip up a little bit or tinker with it. And the fact that I've got holsters, belt, mag pouches, guns that they just work, and I don't really have to think about them. The gear just works. I just put it on and practice. That's really satisfying to me. And so kind of sticking with a known formula, so that I can spend my time actually practicing and getting better instead of just learning new things and making changes. That's kind of what's been interesting to me. I could definitely see, probably if I were to shoot another division at this point, it would probably be limited, just to get some high cap, major power factor action. Carry optics is kind of interesting to me, but I just have no end of hearing about, people having dot problems. And, at the end of the day, I don't want to, I'm not going to train up and shoot a major in carry optics just with the way that dots seem to have lifetime issues. Once somebody gets a dot that can take 10,000 rounds, no problem, or whatever the holy grail is, that I might readdress that. But yeah, for me, just having and if I were to shoot limited, it would probably be with a 40 Tanfo, just because I know them, they work, they're easy to work on, and I can get the parts and whatever. I really am not that interested in tinkering with the gear. I just want something that'll run. Yeah, you should move into limited now that you've got GM in production, someone says in the comments. No, I feel like I'm just getting the hang of production. I feel like, I just got here. Like, I'm just figuring this out. I want to keep it going. How much do you care about accuracy versus speed? I know in open you can pretty much put holes anywhere in the target as long as you get it done faster than anyone else. Is that the same for production? I think in pretty much any division, you need to be shooting, say, 90%, 90 to 95% of the points. So in production, what that works out to is 1 out of 4. 1 out of 4. Let me check my math on that one. So if we talk through the math, so that would be 3 times 5, and then, oops, hang on. Yeah, 3 times 5 plus 3. Whoops. 3, 5. Yeah. So so in production, you want to be between 1 out of 4 shots, no more than a quarter of the shots being Charlies. 95% of points would be 1 out of 8 being a Charlie. And so, like, on a stage like this, where of the scored paper, I shot 2 Charlies, 16 alphas. That's 96% of points. That's what's in the prints here. So generally speaking, if you're going faster than that, you are going to start losing on points. Now, in major power factor, 90% of points is basically Alpha Charlie on every target. 95% of points would be 1 Charlie for every 4 alphas, I believe. So you want to be at least in that zone, because the points do matter. If you start slinging deltas and mics, you're really not you're not going to be competitive. But yeah, I mean, in a major power factor division, it's pretty much anywhere in the Alpha Charlie zone, as fast as you can pull the trigger. And that's just that's a different standard, a different level, that it would be interesting. I think that's part of what would be interesting to me about limited, is just getting that major power factor scoring. But at the same time, I don't mind. In production, I'm trying to make a legitimate effort at every single A zone. I'm not planning to give up any Charlies, hardly ever. I'm trying to think, like, in this match, are there any times where I may have not, so like, okay, so here, this is a great example. You can't see the perfs on these targets, but basically this no shoot is basically splitting the A zone down the middle. So I've got about 3-4 inches of A zone on either of these targets. And so I'm not going to try and be a hero on those. I'm going to shoot for basically the AC line and hope for 2 alphas or Alpha Charlie. If it shakes out to be 2 Charlie, that's how it goes. But in pretty much any situation where I have the whole A zone available, I'm going to be going for the A's. I'm never just going to be shooting at the the center of the brown or anything like that. It racks up too quickly, and especially in production, it ends up dogging you down. And so in a stage like, I didn't put the percentage on that one. I didn't put the percentage on a couple of these, huh? Well, there you go. I was editing these in a hurry, and I guess I just left off the points percentages. But if I look at practice score competitor here, yeah, so like stage 4, shooting 89% of points. Yeah, not really anything interesting to say about that. But yeah, in production, I'm making a legitimate effort at every A zone. Even on partial targets, if I've got the whole A zone available, I'm definitely going for it. If it's a partial, like a vertical, where'd it go? Like one of these. I don't know how well you can see that presentation. Well, yeah, either of them. So, I've got about half the A zone available. On a target like this, I am basically shooting for the center of the available target area. Now, on an IPSC target like this, there's maybe an inch of C zone above the A. So it's almost certainly going to be an A when it's all said and done. But yeah, that's in production. I'm making an effort for every A zone, and I'm looking for 90% at least of points, which means on a 32 round stage, no more than 4 Charlies, or that would be 8 Charlies, right? Dang it, I got to stop doing this live math. Okay, so on a 32 round stage, 32 times 5, that's a maximum of 160.9, 144. Yeah, so that would be 8 Charlies. Yeah. So no more than 8 Charlies on a 32 round stage, 6 Charlies on a 24, that kind of thing. And obviously a delta just counts for 2 Charlies. Yeah, Pop says he squatted with Ashley Rourke at the Florida Open, and her dot went down. Yeah, it's just, they're guys at club matches all the time. Dots are going down. It looks super fun. I would love to shoot it. If I were to shoot it, it would be probably an off-season thing. Get a dovetail mount for the Tanfos, throw a dot on, shoot it in the winter, just for fun, get some extended base pads. Logistically, that certainly would be a closer stretch than switching to limited at this point. But it would be an off-season thing, or, a training gun thing. Just because the reliability on them isn't there, and I would hate to drive to the next state over, or drive to nationals or whatever, and have my dot take a crap on me. It just and the way you avoid that is you like swap a fresh dot out 2 weeks before nationals, zero it in, and then go shoot. And I don't have the patience to deal with that stuff right now. I just don't have the time. I want to be able to go out, practice, not worry about wearing out any of my gear. Both of my Tanfos that have somewhere between 20 and 30,000 rounds on them, and so they're good to go for a long time. Keep them oiled, change the recoil springs every couple of years or whatever, and just keep shooting. Well, Beaker has joined us. You'll have to go back. Beaker actually designed stage 8 here. And yeah, I wish I had, the SketchUp file or something to talk about it. This is really an excellent stage, and you could run this legitimately 10 different ways. And, I picked probably one of the worst ways, at least in production. If I had more rounds, maybe this is a good PCC stage plan or a good open stage plan where the Charlies and Deltas wouldn't hurt as much, but yeah. Stages must be designed by a genius. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, no, I'm glad you guys can actually catch this one live. It's fun being able to answer questions. I know a lot of times it's you're looking at a stage and you're like, why did he shoot it that way? So yeah, so that's about all I've got. If you guys have any more questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, we'll wrap up, and I'll have another video like this out soon. Well, maybe not like this. I'll have the match video for Sir Walter this month up probably next Tuesday. It's usually when I'm able to get them edited and posted after the match. So the 4th of July match is tomorrow at Sir Walter. Looking forward to that. But yeah, Beaker says 204 rounds for tomorrow. Yeah, sounds about right. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of pacing and resetting in the 95-degree heat. So I hope everybody brings lots and lots of water and lots of friends to help pace. Cool. All right. Well, thanks everyone. We will hope to see you guys again, and I'll try and put the word out again before a little bit further ahead. Like I said, it's been tough trying to find time to do these, and it's always hard to predict exactly when the schedule will work out, in any given evening, just to to actually have the time to sit down and do this. I mean, this one's gone. Yeah, we just hit an hour, which is cool. I mean, there's a lot to talk about here, lots of interesting aspects to the stages, but it's it's always tough to find time. But glad I could do it, and like I said, we'll do another one for the Sir Walter match whenever I can. So, thanks, y'all.